the execution, they got what they wanted and was able to convert.
For me, I don't know about the business side of it. I mean, I do, but I can't tell you what I know.
Once again, the Philadelphia 76ers season ended in disappointment. There are questions about what the future of this team is going to look like, but unlike last year, their future has never been more promising. They clearly found a sidekick for Joel Embiid, and they currently have the second most cap space in the entire NBA. There's multiple options to improve this team, and they have one of the most creative executives in the NBA to do it. So before we get to the content, make sure you drop, like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to help the channel grow. Now that we get all that out of the way, cue the intro. Over the past few days, we've been dominating on Prize Picks. We've been hitting an NBA, MLB, and we're on a hot streak, making a ton of money while having a lot of fun while doing it. I post my picks for free on Instagram, so you can literally just go copy my picks and just enjoy the game. And right now, Prize Picks will double your deposit match when you use my promo code TheFlightmike when you sign up. Or you can just click on the link in the description down below and sign up for Prize Picks. And thank you, Prize Picks, for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Joel Embiid once again wasn't able to make it past the second round of the NBA playoffs. Wait, you didn't even make it past the first round of the NBA playoffs. Joel Embiid did his absolute best to put it together against the New York Knicks, but the circumstances were way too difficult. This past year, Embiid missed 30 games with a torn meniscus in his left knee, and then he played with Bell's palsy throughout the playoffs. But fortunately for the Philadelphia 76ers, things are looking way more promising this offseason in comparison to previous offseasons. The horrific contract of Tobias Harris is finally going to be off the books, and the Philadelphia 76ers have the ability to potentially undo one of their biggest mistakes. You remember when Jimmy Butler said this?
Me? Tobias Harris over me? Me?
There's questions of whether or not the Philadelphia 76ers actually chose Tobias Harris over Jimmy Butler, or if Jimmy Butler was just saying this because he was energetic and just wanted to create controversy. But this offseason, the Philadelphia 76ers have the opportunity to potentially pursue Jimmy Butler, but he's not the only person on the table. Due to the fact that there's a brand new CBA, and the new CBA has a new second apron that makes it significantly more difficult to have multiple players on a max contract on your team, the 76ers are in an advantageous position. Tobias Harris's contract is off the books. Tyrese Maxey is set for a contract extension once his rookie contract expires, and he should get a contract that pays him about 25% of the 2024 to 2025 salary cap, and it will be a max contract, but his cap hold will still be just a little over $13 million, which means the Philadelphia 76ers could potentially pursue a blue chip free agent like Jimmy Butler if they decide to. But would Jimmy Butler want to leave the Miami Heat? After all, he had the opportunity to re-sign with the Philadelphia 76ers during the 2019 offseason. Well, in an article by David Aldridge, he mentions how Jimmy Butler wants a 2-year extension from the Miami Heat to tack on after the final 2 years of his current deal expires, which would take him into his age 37 season. If true, Miami would have a decision to make. Is a core group of Butler, Bam Adebayo, and Tyler Hero, and it cannot be forgotten Eric Spoelstra, still good enough to make another run in the Eastern Conference next season and beyond? The answer could be yes. The Heat, when healthy, remain formidable, and Butler is worth the trouble. But there have been murmurings this year that Butler and the Heat may no longer be singing from the same song. Butler famously does things his way, and the Miami Heat organization famously do not enjoy individualism. To be sure, Miami doesn't mind the uncomfortable feelings a player of Butler's caliber can create in search of championships, but Heat culture has parameters and expectations. Butler's never played more than 64 games in any of his 5 seasons there, and while he bristles at the playoff Jimmy moniker, this postseason clearly matters to him more than January and March games in Detroit or Washington or Charlotte. The Philadelphia 76ers got destroyed every time Joel Embiid took the bench during this series. The Knicks outscored them by 47 points when Embiid sat, so Philadelphia clearly needs a solution for those minutes going forward, minutes that will likely increase as Joel Embiid ages. I Ideally, you don't want Joel Embiid playing more than 30 minutes per game for the rest of his career, given how injury prone he's been in the past. And this is the best way to potentially preserve Joel Embiid's body for the playoffs. Aldridge mentions how the Sixers need to have a plan B if Embiid goes down again, but is Jimmy Butler really the best option in this plan B? Brian Windhorst brings this up in his podcast. Jimmy Butler turns 35 in September, has a base salary of $48.79 million in 2024 to 2025, and a $52.4 million player option in 2025 to 26 with the Miami Heat. But probably the best option for the Philadelphia 76ers is one that they've been linked to for multiple months now. The 76ers have the second most cap space in the NBA, and they could use that cap space on a crown jewel free agent this offseason.
I think the Philly is going to come out with a max offer to Paul George that the Clippers are going to have to decide max or not, and Paul George is going to have to decide, do I want to stay here or not?
Paul George can theoretically fit on any team in the NBA. His skill set is so sought after that you're seeing young NBA players model their games after him. Brandon Miller famously said that Paul George is his GOAT.
I grew up watching Paul George. It was never LeBron. I never knocked LeBron. LeBron is, definitely the best player in the league, but I'm a Paul George fan, so of course I thought I made it clear that my GOAT was Paul George, but just to make it clear, my GOAT is Paul George.
Carmelo Anthony even echoes this statement, how players want to be like PG.
I'm watching who they saying is the guy to look at. I'm going to mimic my game after that. Paul George, you see everybody say these kids are saying they are Paul George, like Paul George. Last one of them. This is what they saying. Everybody is playing like Paul George. It went from Steph, I want to be like everybody shooting like Steph. Now it's the wings is all Paul George.
But what happens if Paul George decides to return to the Los Angeles Clippers? After all, Los Angeles is home for Paul George, and he's probably gotten used to Kawhi Leonard getting injured during the playoffs. Well, if that's the case, then there's one intriguing option for the Philadelphia 76ers to improve still, and that individual is none other than Brandon Ingram.
Also another player to watch, Brandon Ingram. He had a very poor playoff session for the Pelicans. He's due a contract extension. The Pelicans have never paid the tax in the history of the franchise. This is a player who might be on the market. And again, I don't think he'd be their number one choice behind Paul George. But this type of player is who Philly could potentially look at to add firepower and offense to this team.
Brandon Ingram has a very attractive contract. He currently is on a salary of $36 million with the New Orleans Pelicans for the 2024 to 2025 season. And after that, he's an unrestricted free agent. So if Brandon Ingram makes it known to the New Orleans Pelicans that he's sick of putting up with Zion Williamson's injury issues and he wants to be traded, otherwise he's just going to walk in the offseason, then at that point, the New Orleans Pelicans have no choice but to trade Brandon Ingram. Brandon Ingram slowed down considerably in the playoffs this past year, but there's no question about it. He's still a 25-6 player. He shot 49% from the field this past year, 36% from three, is 6'8", and possesses tremendous defensive versatility. And if you put him next to Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey, then the sky is the limit for the Philadelphia 76ers, who ironically could have selected Brandon Ingram with the #1 overall pick in the 2016 NBA draft, but they opted for Ben Simmons instead. Either way, none of these options are bad options for the Philadelphia 76ers. Unlike the Phoenix Suns, they have a lot of options in order to improve upon their roster, and the Eastern Conference is significantly weaker than the Western Conference. The only true contenders in the East as of right now, based off of the current roster makeups, are the Boston Celtics and the Milwaukee Bucks. And Daryl Morey has already shown in the past that he's more than capable of manipulating the salary cap to his liking. Their current free agents are Tobias Harris, DeAnthony Melton, Buddy Hield, and Kyle Lowry. I wouldn't be surprised if they brought back Buddy Hield. They currently possess the 16th and 41st overall pick in the NBA draft, and with that 16th pick, I'm looking at them drafting Devin Carter out of Providence, or potentially Ryan Dunn out of Virginia, a player that's been a remarkable defender when he was at Virginia. At the end of the day, the sole responsibility for the Philadelphia 76ers this offseason is trying to lessen Joel Embiid's workload so they could prolong and extend his prime. Embiid has had trouble staying healthy in the past. You want to minimize his usage as much as you can. Nick Nurse has shown historically that his offenses are capable of doing doing that, you just need to get your players proper help. So let me know if you're a 76ers fan. Out of the 3 options that I laid out for you between Jimmy Butler, Paul George, and Brandon Ingram, what's your dream scenario? I personally think plan A is going to be Paul George, plan B is going to be Jimmy Butler, and plan C is, well, Brandon Ingram. I'd like to hear what you have to say. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.